Okay, I'm going to start another scene for this because what we want to do is, let me get down here to my, the scenario is this. Let me create another scene. Want another scene. Let's call this Nav Mesh. So I'll go ahead and double click on this guy. All right. Now, we're going to do this with just primitives. That way we don't have to worry about, you know, having weird looking guys and animations and stuff like that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get my scene laid out here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw, let's get a floor out here first. So I'm going to create a plane. All right, so there's my plane. And I'm going to make this guy bigger. So we'll stretch it out this way. We'll stretch it out this way. All right, so we have a big plane. And let's see, the default material seems fine for that. So now let's get the camera elevated on this guy. So I'm going to turn it sideways here. And then I'm going to lift the camera up, move the camera back, and then rotate the camera down. Actually, I rotated it down quite a bit because I want to be able to give myself kind of an aerial view. So what that looks like. Actually, I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to rotate it back up. All right, let's just say that's good enough. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to put some obstacles on our plane. And let's see, where's the camera? Well, let me go ahead and let's put some stuff on this plane. So I'm going to create a new cube. So there's my cube, and let's give ourselves a material for this cube. We'll make our cube red. Now, this is actually kind of an interesting thing. See how the cube got put inside of the plane? And see, when I look at it, it's very flat. It took on some of the properties of the plane. I actually want the cube to live outside of that. So we'll put the cube out here. We're going to go ahead and reset the scale to see how it made the scale kind of funky. So I'll reset scale, and now we're back to a it actually still looks a little funny. Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm on my, there we go. Okay, so, and we need to have it at 0.5. Oh. That puts it below, so it should be 1.5. Something like that. All right, so we'll have our cube on there. Click on the plane. I'm going to need to okay. So now what I want to do is I want to make kind of like almost like a maze type thing. What we're essentially doing is we're going to create one dude on one side of the map, another dude on the other side of the map. Then we're going to have obstacles in the way. And the idea is that when we say go, this guy will path around those obstacles and ultimately get to your dude that's standing there. So this is like an artificial intelligence path finding type thing, and this is all built into Unity. So let's change the scale of this guy. We'll make our walls a little longer. Okay, let's go straight up and down. All right, so there's one cube. I'm going to go ahead and copy him. We'll put this guy there. We'll copy him again. We'll put this guy here, copy him again. Put that guy there, copy him again. There, copy him again. Something like that. Okay, now we want to put our, let's call it our bad guy over here. And we'll put our good guy over here. Okay, so let's, we're going to create a sphere. We'll call this guy bad guy. All right, and we're going to make that sphere yellow. So there's our bad guy. Then we'll create another sphere. This is good guy, and he'll be purple. And we'll put our good guy way down here. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make both this bad guy and good guy. We're not going to do anything else with these cubes. In fact, yeah, they're not rigid bodies, so that should be fine. So we're going to make both our bad guy and our good guy. We're going to add a component to these guys, and it's going to be called a Nav Mesh Agent. All right, so these guys are going to be Nav Mesh Agents. And we'll say the agent type is a humanoid. So we have this thing called a Nav Mesh. All right, so right now, we'll say here's our plane, and let's see, we're going to have to click on I need the navigation window. Navigation. There we go. All right. So we have this ground, this plane, and we want this guy to be navigation static, and he's walkable. All right. So we have this concept of a nav mesh. So if we think about this room right here, we think about the parts of this room that are walkable. Forget about the tables for a second. The floor is a nav mesh. It's something that we can traverse across. Okay? Well, really, what the nav mesh is, it's the description of how we can move through this room. That's what a nav mesh is. It just happens to be that the floor in here is a walkable surface. So we've taken our plane, which is the floor. We've gone to the navigation window. So I had to go up here to window, find navigation. That gave me this third tab here. So I selected the plane, and I made this guy navigation static, okay, which turns it on. And then you can choose what kind of thing it is. So walkable, not walkable, or is it a jump? All right, so we're going to make the floor walkable. Now, we're going to ignore all of these other things for right now. All right, so we're not going to do anything special with those. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to click on bake here. and we're going to go ahead and bake our nav mesh. Okay, so I took all the stuff that's in this room, I marked it all for what we're going to be able to do with it, but in this case, we know that we can't walk through these tables. But I've decided for right now to ignore that. These red things are effectively our tables. I've said, I'm going to pretend like they're not there. Visual only, which means that I will be able to do the amazing magic trick of walking directly through these tables. And if I did that in real life, people should be scared, and it's because of the dying skeleton thing probably, or maybe the $200 haircut. Ha! Ha! Okay, so in any case, that's the nav mesh itself. Now, the dudes that can walk on the nav mesh, like us, we have to be nav mesh agents. That means we know how to tiptoe around nav meshes. All right. Otherwise, we're not interacting with the nav mesh itself. Now, before I forget, I need to zoom in to the good guy and bad guy and make sure that we are, yeah, we're sitting on the surface, it looks like, right? Yeah, I think we're in contact with the surface. You don't actually have to be exactly touching the surface, but in order for a nav mesh agent to kind of connect to the nav mesh, when you start the game, it has to be close enough to the surface for them to kind of like hook onto each other. Something along those lines. This is close enough. Okay, so I've set my good guy and my bad guy. Both of these guys, if I go to the inspector, I've given both of these guys a component called the Nav Mesh Agent. Okay, now Nav Mesh Agents can set each other. They can set their destination as another Nav Mesh Agent. So what we're going to say here is we want the bad guy to go after the good guy. Okay, so we're going to create a script for our bad guy. So we're going to create a C# script. This is going to be the bad guy script. All right. Now, the bad guy he's going to have a public variable. And we're going to call this, we need to do unityengine.ai using unityengine.ai. That'll give us access to the nav mesh stuff. So we're going to say public nav mesh agent, good guy. All right. Then on start, we're going to go ahead and say, and then we're also going to need nav mesh agent. Let's call that agent. We'll say this dot agent is equal to this dot get component. The component we want is the nav mesh agent associated with the game object that holds on to this script. Okay, so this is so we're going to put this on the bad guy. The bad guy is going to have this script. He's going to get a variable that is his nav mesh agent, and then we're going to say this dot agent dot set destination to another nav mesh agent, which is going to be oh, actually, it doesn't have to be the agent itself. Okay, so we're going to say public game object good guy. And we're going to set this equal to this dot good guy dot transform dot position. All right, so set destination for a nav mesh agent says, tell me the location where you want me to go. But the caveat is that location, that transform, has to be a nav mesh agent. Nav mesh agents can travel to other nav mesh agents. Make sense? So we're telling one nav mesh agent, that is the agent associated with the bad guy, to set his destination upon start to the position of the good guy. Now in this model, our good guy and our good guy is not moving. We haven't given controls to our good guy, so he's just standing there waiting to be attacked. In the event where we wanted him to move and we gave some controls to it, kind of like we did with the first thing with the ball rolling around, well, then we might want to put the set destination thing inside of update so that the bad guy constantly updates his shortest path to keep targeting the good guy because the good guy's trying to run away from him. Okay? But for right now, we just want to see how he gets there. So we're going to have to provide the bad guy script, the game object that is the good guy. We will connect it to the bad guy, use the bad guy's get component to get the Nav Mesh agent associated with him, and then we'll set the bad guy's destination to the good guy's position. Okay, so we'll come back in here. Here is our bad guy. And I'll go ahead and drag the bad guy script over here. And the bad guy script wants to know about the good guy. So I'll drag the good guy into the game object container for the bad guy script. So bad guy script knows about good guy. Bad guy script knows about bad guy's game Nav Mesh agent. And on start, he's going to start walking there. So go ahead and hit play. We have a very poor angle of attack with our camera. Why is this so small?
Are you still zooming
I mean, this should show me my camera preview.
in? Right, but in the camera, are you zoomed in? When you hit play?
What do you mean, my zoomed in?
I know you had zoomed in before.
This is what the game should look like. Oh, I get what you're saying. So if I zoom in on the game, okay, there we go. So now here he is. He's going towards the enemy, or the good guy, and he's passing right through walls. We would prefer that not to be the case. Okay, now they're I don't know what they're doing. Probably should be censored, but all right. So now we'd like to use Unity to go ahead and have him pad around those obstacles. All right. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to set all those cubes, our little walls that we have in here, like the tables in this room, highlight all of them, go to the navigation window. Remember, we got to that guy by going under window and clicking navigation, and it added this tab over here. I'll click on object. I'm going to make all those guys navigation static. I'm going to mark them as not walkable. Okay? So I've set those guys up as being obstacles. Now, the important thing we got to remember, though, is so at this point, we've marked everything in the scene as either walkable or not walkable. Made the floor walkable, made all these obstacle things not walkable. We got to remember to go back to bake and bake it. And what we'll see happens here, let's see if I can zoom in on top of one of these guys. Notice now, I didn't have one of the dudes selected. We need to make him navigation static and not walkable. Then go to bake and bake. All right, so now notice that there's a little bumper area around those objects that have been, so little holes cut out of the nav mesh that our Nav Mesh agents aren't allowed to step on now. That make sense? So now when we hit play, notice that our guy is pathing around stuff. That make sense? All right, and we can make it far more complex than this. So we can, let me just grab one of these cubes. So we'll do this, and I'll copy that. We're gonna move that, copy him again, do that. So you can really like screw with this guy. And let's see what that looks like. So I'll grab all these guys. We'll click on object, navigation static, not walkable, then bake. Now the nav mesh has been updated. Go ahead and run this again. And now this guy should have a lot more trouble. Oh, he's just going to cheat. Screw this. It zips around everything. All right, that wasn't that interesting. We need to put a couple more. We got to put some blockers in here. It's like a... All right, at the very least, those should be. All right, so now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and add our movement to that other one. So we actually already have a movement script, right? Just nobody's going to send this guy that collect message, so we can just use this guy for our movement. We just have to add a rigid body to our good guy. So here's our good guy. We'll click on Spectre. We'll go ahead and add a rigid body. I'll turn off gravity. And then we will add the movement script to this guy. And we'll give him a speed of 5. I don't remember what was the good speed. Oh. I mentioned it earlier, but I didn't update it, right? So we got to go back in here. And now what we're going to do is instead of setting the destination on start, we'll do it inside of update. So every frame, the bad guy will update his target, because now our good guy is a moving target, right? Oh, no. No! I've made these roads too tiny. Oh, there's no way I cannot survive. Brakes!
Does it have you hit a wall because it's not walkable out there?
Actually, yes.
Okay. Go on.
All right. Now, if you think about this, how many of you ever played, I think it's on the Wii U, the Mario one, where it's like the tag, where one person uses the thing and they're the one who they're chasing, and then somebody else is the one who's like running away, and they can see where everybody else is to keep away from them. We've effectively, minus the good graphics, written that, right? This is tag. See how good I am at this? Man, it's just awesome.
You set your speed to 5.
That makes him harder to control. Have you ever driven a Porsche on ice? All right. All right, so that's Nav Mesh Agents stuff. Does that kind of make sense how that works? So now you can put dudes into your scene that allowed you to path through stuff.
Real quick,
Mhm.
or if this would be quick at all, how would you do just wandering? Like they don't have a destination to path to.
So you want instead of the bad guy to go to instead of him to go to directly at a destination, you kind of want him to kind of just go around the map.
Yeah.
Right? All right. So what I would probably do is something like this. We're going to go ahead and maybe set up a couple of other Nav Mesh agents, but they can be invisible. Okay, these are kind of like points on the map that are of interest. And then what you'll do is you'll randomly select which of those points to set as your destination right now. And as soon as you collide with it, as soon as you get there, then you can randomly select a new destination. Does that make sense? Yeah, so I mean that's probably the way I would end up doing it. And if you want, we can actually write it next time. So here's kind of my plan moving forward. So each class, we're going to keep doing Unity stuff, but I want you guys to help drive this. So I'm going to give you comments. I'll try to get your stuff graded by the end of the day tomorrow, so I can kind of see which stories you picked and that kind of stuff. Start working on your games. Okay, remember, somewhere around week 8, we're going to have presentations where you'll have the you'll get to get up here and embarrass yourself if you don't have anything good to show. And then at the end, we'll have presentations, and sometime in that second 8 weeks is when we'll convert our stuff over to VR. So what we're going to do each week when we come to meet is I'll show you new stuff if you don't have stuff for me. So I'll start showing you some VR stuff or something like that. But I want you working on your project between classes. This is a big project, right? Okay, so we're spending lots and lots of time on this project, and I mentioned that you're going to be counting for your hours, right? So you essentially have this ongoing rolling homework assignment, okay? And I mean, if you slack, that's on you, I guess. But what I'll do is, what I expect you to do is come to class having accomplished some stuff during that week, but come with a problem that you couldn't solve or something you were having problems with. So the class will kind of be like, we'll call it Stump the Professor. But regardless of that, as a class, we'll solve that problem so that you can continue making forward progress on your games. Does that make some sense? So if you're trying to get some mechanic working in your game and you just can't get it working, come to class with that question and we'll try to solve it. All right. So I encourage you to come with that, work on your, set up a work schedule each week to actually put in time for your project, show up with those questions so that the class can help push your project forward instead of you sitting there and spinning for 2 or 3 weeks because you haven't put in the effort, and those are 2 or 3 weeks of class time that you haven't been able to maybe get your problem really solved. Okay? Questions, comments, concerns, bribes? Yeah. Yeah, there's a 518 Slack channel. Yeah, if you haven't, you're probably not on Slack, right? Okay, so let me show you that real quick while we're on video. All right, so we have a Slack channel for computer science here. So here's CSC518. In order to join Slack, what you'll do is you're going to go to cuwcs.slack.com. And you'll put in your CUW email address here, and that will allow you to join that group. Once you join our group, you'll have access to all of these channels, but at the very least, join 518. Okay? Have you used Slack before? Okay. It's like a chat program. Very good. Good place to ask questions. If you do have questions on your program, like for instance, here's a good example. He just asked me, we didn't implement it yet, But he just asked me, hey, how would you create guys that are like wandering? Kind of like the horses and the thing you saw before. So I gave him the idea. I said, oh, maybe you just create some Nav Mesh agents and just randomly walk to one of those. And when you hit one, pick a new destination, right? And that will give the idea of just randomly walking around. There's no reason why he couldn't ask that. Let's say he's working on his project during the day tomorrow. And he couldn't ask that on Slack. And then whether it's me or one of you, give him advice on how to do that so he doesn't have to wait until next Thursday to get the answer. Okay? I want us to all work as a group to get this stuff. I've got quite a bit of experience working with Unity, but so does Tim, so does Joseph. So, and then as a group here now, we've been introduced to some stuff, and hopefully we see that a lot of it is just normal problem solving. We just have to think like, okay, here's the tools that are in our toolbox. How can we kind of put these guys together and make it do something? All right? So start working on your project and ask questions often. Come to class with questions, otherwise I'll keep showing you new stuff. Sound good? Homework, 470 homework right now.